All right, welcome back in Live Now. I'm Austin Westfall. Always a pleasure checking in with Christina on these Saturdays. We love to do it. All right, I'll be in control here for the next 4 hours. Lots and lots to get to. 2 o'clock on the West Coast, just about 5 o'clock in the nation's capital. As I said, we are going to be speaking with Hal Kempfer about lots and lots of topics. There is a lot to discuss. Hal is here with me right now. As always, Hal, it's good to see you. There are 3 different big headlines that I wanted to touch on with you today. The first one has to do with something that the Trump administration is proposing. Military.com says the Department of Homeland Security is planning to house migrants at 2 new military installations as the Trump administration increasingly turns to the armed forces to bolster its aggressive immigration crackdown. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says that bases in Indiana and New Jersey can house detained immigrants without affecting military readiness. I'm curious, Hal, is there any precedent for an idea like this? You and I were talking offline about Fort Bliss in El Paso and Camp Pendleton in the 70s.
Yeah, actually, they've been used a lot. President Obama actually had multiple military bases back in 2014 when he was doing, I don't know if you want to call it a crackdown or whatever, but he was housing immigrants from Central America, South America, and Mexico, depending on how you want to count Mexico. I count it as North America. But he had actually used military installations. And if you go back, for example, in '94, when I worked the Haiti-Cuba crisis, the boat crisis, if you will, where they were trying to get out of Haiti and Cuba, we used our military bases again. Guantanamo most famously, but we actually used the Panama Canal Zone to house immigrants as part of that crisis. And it keeps going that way. I mean, when Vietnam and Cambodia, when it fell in '75, and you had the big influx of Vietnamese and Cambodian boat people, again, Camp Pendleton, for example, in Southern California, housed a huge complex for bringing in those immigrants, processing them, moving them on to where they had to go. So, and then I could go back to World War II and a bunch of other things. So it is very common to use military bases, and this is not the first time the Trump administration has done it. In the first term, I think El Paso was used, and another military base was used to hold immigrants. So it's a very common practice. It's a secured facility. They usually have what they need to set up an expeditionary type of environment, if you will. And I've already heard that expression. It just got tossed out once. They said they're talking about putting soft side housing. Soft side housing to me is kind of a nice way of saying tents. All right. So it sounds to me like they're going to set up a lot of tents for temporary housing. And frankly, military installations are already set up to do that.
So, Hal, I read that this could be a step toward potentially detaining thousands of people on bases on U.S. soil. Is that possible? Thousands?
Oh, yeah, easily. Yeah, thousands, tens of thousands. Depending on the size of the bases, you could actually house in total hundreds of thousands of people on military bases. We have some pretty big bases out there. Now, there's some bases where you really wouldn't want to put somebody in tents right now. For example, I can think of any base in the American Southwest would be a really bad idea this time of year. But there are bases where they can hold a lot of space. And you have to remember, these bases, we routinely roll in brigades of thousands to do training for a few weeks or whatever. And they will set up their training area or set up their base camp and everything else. So they're kind of already geared up to do this. Now, the question that's come up, Democrats have been a little critical of this today in the news, and they have brought up the impact on military readiness, military training. Secretary Hegseth has kind of pushed back, saying there will be no problems with that. I kind of wonder, it just depends on the rotation of various units going through these bases. Will using them for an immigration center, would that prevent using them for some other purpose? And I think that's something they're going to have to provide a certain amount of, dare I say, granularity on, some detail on, to make sure that it isn't adversely impacting military readiness.
So that touches on something I wanted to ask you about. We don't know when migrants could be arriving at the facilities or if other military bases are being considered. As you mentioned, Democratic lawmakers, also civil rights advocates, they're not liking this idea. One concern is that it'll impact military resources. They also, of course, don't like the immigration and the politics angle of all this, of course, Hal. But I would ask you this. Could this idea, kind of bouncing off of what you were just discussing, is it possible that this idea spreads these bases thin? How do they avoid that?
Well, the issue is who's going to be there managing the facilities, and that would involve security at those facilities as well. Will it be military personnel that are actually managing the facilities, providing some either outer perimeter security or something like that, or maybe providing some sort of logistics support? By the way, all of those things, if they're on a government facility, or as far as I can tell, are well within the legal parameters which the military operates in the U.S. I don't see where that would cross over into violating, say, posse comitatus or something like that. But the question is, will we be tying up a lot of military resources on this? Now, it could be they're going to use the facilities, could be they're going to use some military resources, but it could be they're also bringing in a lot of Department of Homeland Security, ICE type resources or CBP resources to actually manage those facilities or conduct or take the lion's share of that management of those facilities. And if that's the case, then it wouldn't have as big an impact or footprint, if you will, on the Department of Defense overall.
So, why do we have to discuss this idea? Is there simply not enough space currently for the amount of arrests that the White House is making?
Well, what you want to do with the situation really is where do you put these immigrants you're detaining? And there's not a whole lot of great places. It's not like you're going to go down to an abandoned mall, which probably has been done. I wouldn't doubt it, but and set up some sort of facility for detained immigrants or something like that. This is a situation where they're being held there. They're being held there in a situation where they might not want to be held there, and you want a certain degree of security around that. So then you start looking at places that are highly secure. And, you could look at, and I'm sure they have looked at prisons. All right. That's an option. You go to prison facilities or prison grounds and do this, or you start looking at military facilities, because military facilities, by definition, a military base or installation is a secured facility by the way it's set up. And certainly if you're someone who's being detained, in most cases against your will, you're a little reticent if you're in the middle of a military base to try and escape across a military base, because frankly, they should be wondering what would happen if they did that, because at that point, they would be someone on a military installation that is someplace they're not supposed to be. And there's a variety of force measures that could be imposed in order to prevent them from doing whatever they want to do. So there's a lot of good reasons why, historically speaking, military bases have kind of been go-to places to set things like this up.
As I've been saying, there are lots of headlines to hit with Hal Kempfer today. That's the first of three we're going to be doing. We have to take a quick commercial break. We're going to head to the Middle East when we return.